So again, welcome everyone to Ask Heather Ash. This is HeatherAsh Amara, and it's September 30th. I'm answering any questions that you have. So if you have any questions that you want to ask me, please feel free to do this right now. I'll answer them live. You can also email me at hello@heatherashamara.com. I'm happy to answer your questions, in the following weeks that come up. So I haven't been around for a while, so I'm happy to be back with everybody. So first question that I have is how to deal with the fear of both failure and success. So somebody wrote this question a while ago when I was doing a webinar, and we were talking about fear. And I just realized, look, microphone, let me put it on. There, that should be better. That most of us have a fear of both failure and success. So we may think it's a fear of failure, but when you really look into it, you'll probably see that you also have a fear of success as well. And what that is what I call disaster mind at work. That each of us has a part of our mind that always is looking at worst case scenarios. So it's not so much the success or the failure, it's just the fear in general of anything happening. So our mind is looking forward to go, what are the bad things that might happen? And basically what you have to do when you have a fear of failure or a fear of success or a fear of both success and failure is that you have to be willing to start to look at the overall disaster mind that you have and how your mind is running worst case scenarios, probably about almost everything. And learn to do what I call period grammar. So whenever you notice yourself worrying about the future or beating yourself up about the past, whenever you go into fear of failure, of, oh my God, what if it fails? What if it doesn't work out? And then your mind starts telling you all the stories of what's going to happen when you fail. Or the same thing when your mind starts telling you all the things that are going to go wrong when you succeed and how awful it's going to be. And while you might be successful for a little bit, then you're not going to be successful, or your friends are going to leave you, like whatever your mind is saying. To realize it's not telling you the truth, it's trying to keep you safe. So the moment that you notice the fear, just name it, fear. Just saying it out loud sometimes can help you to take a step back to start to witness your fear rather than jumping on the train and riding down the track. Because the truth is, the train's always going to go to the same place. When the train is on that track of fear, it's always going to go into worst case scenario, what could go wrong. And so instead of getting on, really stop and do what I do, period, and take a breath. And tell yourself what you want to do is retrain to bring yourself back into the present moment and to say, everything's fine right now, period. What's my next step? What do I want to put my action into right now? What we are often doing is we're looking way into the future instead of staying with ourselves with where we're at and taking that next step. I just had this great experience. We just got back from a Warrior Goddess Wisdom Weekend in Sedona, and beautiful event, really incredible group. And we did a really beautiful ceremony the last morning where we walked up these set of stairs that go up the side of a little hill up to a gazebo. But we did it really mindfully. So I was the last person to go, and I was really mindful about taking a step, pausing. Taking a step, pausing, and just settling into every step and taking a breath and being present, taking the next step. And what I realized as I was doing this is how I want to live my life. That I take a step, that I take the next action, and then I wait, then I just go back into the stillness before I take the next action. And of course I had a great opportunity to practice today because I haven't really been in front of a computer to work in a serious way. I've been teaching for the last month. And this was my first kind of full day back in front of the computer, and I was completely overwhelmed and felt swamped with everything, wasn't sure how I was going to get things done. And I had to keep going back to that. All right, sweetheart, one step, one action, take a breath. One step, one action, take a breath. And reminding myself over and over again, big picture, everything's going to get handled, or it's not, but I can only do my best in this moment. And so that's something that you can do when you're noticing yourself afraid of failure or success, is come back to the present moment. What's the next step? Can you put your love and your presence and your energy into that next step, letting go of what's going to happen? What's important is how you're taking the action. All right, Julie has a question. So let me see if I can see more. While doing deep inner healing, is it too much alone time unhealthy? Doing deep healing for 2.5 years now. Okay, I cannot read the rest of it, unfortunately. Boop. So Julie, if you could just write the second half. Oh, there we go. Been single for almost 3 years, having a hard time in social situations now. Okay, great question, Julie. Thank you. So it's true when you're doing really deep inner work that there's more alone time that often is needed, because you're unraveling old patterns. And it can also get unhealthy because you forget how to interact with people, because you start isolating, pulling yourself back. I talk about in Warrior Goddess training that there's 4 main strategies: controller, isolator, pleaser, and distractor. And so you want to be careful that you're not going into an isolator mode, which is different from I need space to do my healing versus I need to get away from everybody. I need to protect myself. And so if you're noticing that you're having a hard time in social situations, then it's something that you'll want to practice being more in the world and integrating yourself. And looking at what kind of people do you want to have in your life. That can be something that when we go through healing, we realize maybe that some of the old community that we hung out with, or people that we've known for a long time, that we're different, that we've changed, and that we don't have as much in common with them. So what you want to look for is, where are there people that have commonalities with what you're interested in? And it might be a really specific thing. So maybe you're interested in knitting, or maybe you're interested in hiking, or maybe you're interested in a particular spiritual path. Don't expect to find somebody who's going to have all those things, but you could find, let's say, a knitting group that might not be spiritual, but they fulfill that part of your desire to connect and communicate and to practice being in relationship with humans, with who you are now, because it does take practice. And that you can also look for spiritual community or healing community in your area. So you want to find people that are curious about who you're becoming, not necessarily people that have a fixed idea of who you should be. Okay, that's not so helpful. In terms of being single, there's no right or wrong about being single or being in a relationship, around how much alone time you spend versus how much social time. But there's really you being honest with yourself of what are your needs? What are you craving more of? What are you missing? And that might be more relating to other people. It might be that you realize you're ready for a relationship or to start dating. And dating and relationship doesn't have to go together. You can just practice dating and see how you do and see what it feels like and run it as an experiment and an exploration. And remember also, the other gift about interacting with other people is you get to learn more about yourself. So you may be doing some really good healing work alone, and what I've seen is to then really integrate it into the body takes interacting with other people, so you can see where you're still triggered or where you're not, how you're doing, what's going on. Yeah. Valerie Jean, I've been single over 60 years. I like it. That's great. There is no rule that says you have to not be single or that you have to be partnered. Being single is fabulous. I always love the times when I'm single and the times that I'm partnered. And right now I'm in a great place because I'm partnered and single in my mind, because I travel all over the place, so I get a lot of alone time, and I have some really important relationships in my life as well. You're welcome, Julie. I hope that helps. Hey, Valerie. Yeah, Julie, definitely isolating protection of my heart. Yeah, so then to gently start bringing yourself out and interacting and knowing it's going to be awkward probably, and it might be rough. I know that when I first started doing this work and I spent a lot of time in silence, that learning how to communicate in a new way was challenging. I was used to a particular way of communicating and I had shifted. So it just took practice and the willingness to go through the kind of awkwardness that can happen when you haven't been interacting with people, or when you've shifted a lot and you're still really trying to find out who you are. All right. Good. Any other questions from the folks that are live now? Or I can go on to another question that I have from our list. So the other one that I have is around grieving. We've had a lot of people in the community recently that are in a grieving process. So the question is, I'm grieving a sudden, unexpected, and close loss. It's excruciating. How do I use it to get more empty when I feel so numb, empty anyway? So this was from a webinar that I did called How to Get Empty to Get Full. And so the experience of grief, what I've really noticed about grief through my own experiences and being in relationship with other people that are going through big grief, is that it really, really comes in waves. And that so often when we have a loss of something, whether it's loss of a beloved, someone that's really close to us, or a dog, or a job, or a friendship, that the grief kicks up old grief that we haven't processed. And so often you're not just grieving the thing you think you're grieving. There's a door that's opened and now the other grief in your life comes forward. So I found that really helpful when I realized, oh, this isn't just grief around my divorce, or this isn't just grief around the loss of this person in my life. This is me also grieving the places I never let myself grieve in the past. And so if you allow that door to open and you give yourself space to grieve, it can be really beautiful. Because remember, what you're grieving is something that you love, and the loss of that thing that you love. And so allowing yourself to have the grief fully and know that it's going to come in waves, that it's going to feel incredibly intense, and you're going to go in and let yourself have the grief, and then it'll ebb, it'll go away. And it'll be clear for a little bit, and then boom, the grief will hit again. And it just goes in these natural waves. The thing that will keep the grief going is when you've combined the grief and the story. So we want to separate that out. The grief is an expression of a feeling that you're having. But when you link that to a story, and the story says either I shouldn't have this grief any longer, or it's unfair that this person left me, I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life, I should have done it a different way. When you have regret or shame or blame, then you can keep that grief going really artificially. Okay, it's still the grief, but then your mind is getting involved and exacerbating it. Versus when you're just letting yourself have the grief fully. What it'll feel like is you'll feel more open and more loving on the other side. You'll have appreciation for the other person. When your mind is involved and you're feeling victimized by the grief, or you're projecting what it means about the future, or you're holding on to grief from the past, for example, then it doesn't clear. It feels this lingering heaviness. So that's something that you can really watch for in the grief. It can be really intense. And if you give yourself permission to just grieve when you need to, or to set the time aside. So if you're in a place where you can't necessarily grieve because you're at work, or you're in a situation that you're driving, then what you want to do is tell your body, this is really true about any emotion, all right, honey, I can't do this right now, but I promise you later today, when we get home from work, I'll take some time to grieve, or I'll take some time to sit with this emotion, whatever it is. And that's going to build trust. So it'll make it easier for you to set a time aside for yourself to have the emotion, and you're not pushing it down or repressing it. You're really holding it and saying, all right, not now, sweetheart, we'll have this later. Okay, so set time aside to grieve or to feel your feelings around different things in your life. It's really important piece. All right, any other questions? I'm going to go, I think I have time for one more. Welcome to Jess and Beth Ann and Alejandra. So one more question that I've gotten is about finances and agreements around money. So I'm going to start this conversation and then we'll continue it next week. Okay, so any of you that have issues around finances and money, this one's for you. So finances is really energy. So when I look at money and the amount of agreements we have around money, one of the things that I look at is, can you replace the word money with energy? And to see that money is just an energy source. It's something that flows in and out of your life. And that the agreements that we have around money are often agreements we have around flow of, can I hold energy? Can I direct energy? Am I capable of receiving? Do I deserve? That's the right word. Do I deserve money/energy? So to start to explore in your life, if you have agreements around money and finances, to really get curious about, there's a couple of things that we can start with. One is to get curious about, what did you learn about finances? And what agreements did you take on? And let yourself be surprised by this. Okay, so for an example, for me, when I was in college, I made a really strong agreement, and I remember making it, that money was bad, and that if I was going to help people that were in need, that I needed to be like them and not have money. Otherwise, it was unfair. I'm very much about fairness. And so I felt like it wasn't fair that some people could have money and some people didn't have money. So therefore, I was not going to have money. And that was an agreement that I made as a young woman that I've really had to look at over the years. And as I've grown, I've really seen that has limited me in a lot of ways. It limited me for a long time. And I got the opportunity to look at, where was I dampening life? Where was I not letting life flow? Where was I holding an agreement that was not in the best service for anybody? Because the truth is, the more resources I'm able to access, the more I can help other people. And it's a choice what I do with the resources. The resources are neutral, but what we do with our resources is our choice. Okay, so to get curious about, what did you learn about money growing up? And then what agreements did you make as you were growing up, either as a young kid or as a young adult, even, or recently? What's your belief around money? And just be curious about it. You don't have to fix it or change it or try to figure it out, but just start gathering what those agreements are, and that's going to inform what you do next and how you start to transform that belief. Because first you have to look at, how is this serving me? How has this served me? How has this agreement helped me out in whatever way? And then you also have to look at, how has this agreement hurt me? How has it not served me? And when you have that data, it's easier to begin to shift our agreements around finances and money. Good. All right, dear ones, that's our 20 minutes. So if you have any other questions, feel free to email us at hello@HeatherAshAmara.com. Happy to answer any questions. I'll be back again next Monday at 4:30 Pacific time, which is 7:30 Eastern time, to answer any questions that you have. Take good care, sweet ones. I hope that you have a really, really great week. And also on Instagram, I just started. I'm so excited. Every weekday, I'm going to be reading out of my book, Warrior Goddess Wisdom. So I did number 2 today, page 2 today. Page 3 is tomorrow. So those are up for 24 hours. So you can check out on my Instagram page if you want to get those. They're like a minute to a minute and a half little videos about a specific action for the day, a theme and an action for the day. All right. Take good care. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining me today.